I'm Jason, the world is yours, and today we have a story about musician Lorde shares her concert industry explainer. Quote, touring has become a demented struggle to break even or even face debt, unquote. Lorde talked about the current state of concerts in her most recent newsletter. I don't know how much you've been following the live music industry conversation, but let me hit you with a 5 minute explainer because I think it's interesting and good to know about if you're going to concert at the moment, she wrote. Now, I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to try to skim through some of the highlights of this. Basically, for artists, promoters, and crews, things are at an utmost unprecedented level of difficulty. It's a storm of factors. Let's start with 3 years worth of shows happening, well, basically not happening, add global economic downturn, and then the totally understandable weariness for concert goers around health risks. I'm surprised that's a little bit, people still on the weariness of being, I guess you could kind of be weary about that. Let me see, anything else? Okay, I don't really want to curse. I don't shit about money, but I know enough to understand that no industry has profit margin that high. Ticket prices would have to increase to start accommodating even a little of this, but absolutely no one wants to charge their an extremely compassionate and flexible audience any more money. Nearly every tour has been besieged with cancellations and postponements. This is true, and audiences have shown such understanding and faith. That is true. A lot of concerts have been down. He said, profits being down across the board is fine for artists like me. I'm lucky. But for pretty much every artist selling less tickets than I am, touring has become a demented struggle to break even or face debt. For some, touring is completely out of the question. Even if they were to sell the whole thing out, the math doesn't make sense. Understandably, all of this takes a toll on crews, promoters, and artists. You'll notice a ton of artists canceling shows, citing mental health concerns in the past year, and I really think the stress of this stuff is a factor. Wow. Okay. Let me see. Okay, let me end around here. For me personally, I'm doing pretty good. You guys come to the shows in such mammoth numbers. We sold almost 20,000 tickets in London. Like, what the hell? And not having crippling stage fright hanging over me for the first time is such a blessing that you could tell me I had to cycle from city to city. I'd still be loving it. But I'm not immune to the stress. Just a month ago, I was looking at a show that was pretty undersold and panicking just a month ago, only for it to sell the remaining 2,000 tickets in 10 days. Wild stuff. I wanted to put all of this in your minds. I guess she's speaking to us, the concert goers, basically to everyone, to illustrate that nothing's simple when it comes to touring at the moment. And if your favorite bands are confusing you with their erotic moves, some of this could be playing a part. Wow, that's interesting. That is interesting. Now, I want to end the article down here because this is where I actually started to notice that I was just like, okay, this is where it started to get surprising because I noticed a few artists were canceling tours and one artist, two artists, three artists. You're like, hold on, what's going on here? But the last article I wanted to read. She's the latest in a string of artists who have talked about how hard touring has been as of late. Santa Gold shared a statement about the harsh reality of touring artists as she canceled her live shows. And Animal Collective recently canceled a series of European dates due to the economic concerns of touring. Yeah, so this, I think that's what it kind of really, really started to perkle up when I heard about Animal Collective. Nothing against Animal Collective. I would say Lorde is probably obviously doing 20,000 concerts. So she brings in, a way bigger artists, way bigger crowds than Animal Collective. But when I noticed when Animal Collective canceled. I think they said they could either go on tour or they would be losing money. They said they would literally be losing money if they sold everything out and all the merchandise, but touring in Europe, and don't quote me, but from what I understand, I believe that's what they were saying, that if they were to go on a European tour, that they would literally be losing money, even if, not just losing money because ticket sales were doing bad or they didn't have merchandise or anything. They were saying that even if everything went right, they would either break even or still lose money. If everything sold out, all the merchandise sold out, all that stuff did well, that they would still be losing money on a tour like that, or maybe breaking even. So now we're hearing artists like Lorde, who, as she said, 20,000 tickets in London, you know, that's obviously a great amount, but you definitely, I'm starting to worry about obviously smaller artists around the Animal Collective size, even smaller artists than that. I will have to keep an eye on more artists sharing stories like this. Obviously, the year is almost over, so next year we're gonna have a lot of musical festivals. I'm just wondering, like when I was growing up, musical festivals were more like a summer thing, and now if you notice it, there's a musical festival almost every weekend, right? In every city. So music festivals have definitely played a larger role in the music industry. The problem with the music festival is that if you are like a smarter artist, and I don't know if they have that in their contract, maybe it's just the headliners, but I know if you are playing on a music festival, you're basically not allowed to play any shows in that area. Maybe that's for larger artists, but I think an artist like Animal Collective, if they were playing, Coachella, they won't be allowed to play a concert in that area for like up to a month before, maybe even a month after. So that's definitely worrisome. I lived in a city, San Francisco, and I currently live in Las Vegas. But when I moved from San Francisco, a lot of the local smaller music venues had basically closed. I don't know if they reopened after COVID, but music venues like that for touring artists like Animal Collectives, I wonder if those also have closed in places like Europe and have stayed closed in places like America, where smaller artists who aren't going to sell 20,000 tickets, or who can't sell 20,000 tickets to a show, can't even sell out the local music venue because there's no local music venues. So that's worrisome. Like I said, we're going to keep an eye on this. We're definitely not cheering for the music industry to end. I'm a huge fan of music concerts in local cities. Those are like the best. They're affordable. It's also a nice night out in your city. So definitely keep an eye on this. Hopefully this is a trend that, we don't have to see too much of in the year 2023. A lot more things open up, less COVID restrictions. Obviously, if you think about it, I was still thinking about it last week, is that, last year at this time in the city that I currently live in, Las Vegas, we still had mask mandates. Like literally at this time, November 11th, 2021, there was literally still mask mandate. You couldn't walk inside anyway. You couldn't walk inside a bus. You couldn't take public transportation. You couldn't even go to any of the Las Vegas casinos. I think it was last year around December of 2021, or maybe even 2022. Around January is when we actually had the mask mandates lifted. But for the most part, last year at this time, mask mandates were still in required, and so hopefully next year around this time, this story, gets a lot better for the touring musicians and for the fans like myself who want to see these artists in our local cities, in our local venues. But, hopefully this is not something that continues. Like I said, this story caught my eye when I read a story about Animal Collective. And I wasn't, not that I wanted to underplay it. I wanted to see if it got bigger. And now we're seeing artists, artists like Santa Gold and artists like Lorde, even here in Las Vegas. Adele, she canceled a bunch of residencies in Las Vegas. If that was production, or maybe something had to do with ticket sales. Maybe things weren't working out. We'll see how does that work out in the year 2023. Hopefully it does not get worse than what this is. You know, if artists like Lorde are having trouble, if artists like Santa Gold are having trouble, if artists like Animal Collective are having trouble going on music or touring in the music industry, this is not a great sign. But hopefully it gets better. This is why we want to cover stories like this, just to highlight the lows, and then hopefully we can get better and move on from the restrictions and the past 2-3 years of basically no music concerts, and the demand is clearly there. I still think the demand is there. It's just, I think it's just more about restrictions at the moment. I don't think, obviously there is still some people who probably don't want to go into a crowded dive bar right now, you know, and pay for a show for $25, and you're literally stuffed in, you know, a music venue. So that's still playing in people's minds. We'll see if how does that play into the year 2023. I am Jason. The world is yours. Not with a great story, a little bit worrisome story. As a huge fan of music concerts, hopefully this is not, you know, this doesn't get worse. But today we had a story about musician Lorde shares concert industry explainer. Quote, touring has become a demented struggle to break even or even face debt. Thank you for watching.